Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7 News, an update, Israel at war. And tomorrow will mark the 650th day of the war, which started on October the 7th, 2023, with the horrific attack and massacre by Hamas on Israeli villages, towns, and military outposts. Up to now, 1942 Israelis and others have been killed or murdered, approximately half of them civilians, half of them soldiers, as well as police officers and intelligence operatives. And with us today are two brigadier generals, one in the reserves, one retired. Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, retired of the U.S. Army, formerly also an Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs. General Kimmett, out of Washington, D.C., welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me, Amir.
Thank you. And Brigadier General in the Reserves, Yossi Kuperwasser, formerly a senior IDF intelligence officer in charge of assessments and research for the Directorate of Military Intelligence, now heading an important think tank in Jerusalem. General Kuperwasser, welcome too.
Thank you for having me.
Now, while the IDF keeps fighting in Gaza and there are negotiations going on in Doha, Qatar, about a possible deal releasing the 50 Israeli hostages, 20 alive and 30 dead, or at least half of them in the first phase, leaving the rest for a second one. Right now, today, another front flared up. And this is the Syrian southwestern province of Sueda, also known as Jebel Druze, where pro-regime militias and gangs have attacked the Druze community. Following that, two important events took place and actually are still taking place as we are speaking right now. One was that the Israeli military was ordered by the cabinet to attack the regime elements and protect the Druze. And the other one was that many Druze brethren of the Syrian Druze have penetrated Syria in order to help their communities which are under siege and are threatened with massacre. The Israeli military sees this development as very serious, has shifted some of its forces from other sectors, and is prepared for more than a day or two of fighting. So as we now are blessed with the twins' intelligence and operations, Kuperwasser and Kimmett, let me ask you, Yossi, first. Is the fate of the Druze community in Syria considered a national security interest for Israel, for which it is ready to get involved in war, if necessary?
Well, it is considered the major interest of Israel. I don't know if existential one, but definitely an interest, because we have a commitment towards the Druze, just like they fight in our ranks and devote themselves to protecting Israel against all kinds of threats. We have to reciprocate and show our commitment to their safety. Now, it's a long story, very complicated, how we ended up with this situation. But we have expressed our commitment to their security in advance. And now that this commitment is challenged by the gangs that are operating against the Druze and get the support of the regime, we have to be there in order to, first of all, protect them. Secondly, make sure that the forces that may threaten us do not deploy in the southern part of Syria and may move next towards our communities in the Golan Heights. And third, it's a matter of making sure that everybody realizes that we are reliable. Because once we said something, we have to do what we said we are going to do. And that's why we now, in order to show that we are reliable, we have taken these attacks inside Damascus itself, close to the building of the Ministry of Defense, so that everybody will realize that we mean what we say.
General Kimmett, Mark, we are bitterly disappointed. It was only last December that the Bashar Assad regime collapsed. The jihadist or former jihadist, remains to be seen, Julani, also known as Ahmed Ashara, took over, and seemingly peace was at hand. Now, when the Soviet Union evaporated, it took several years for Putin to get back to the hostile, aggressive stance under Russia this time. Here, several months have elapsed, and here we are again faced with a threat. Right now, it is not a cross-border threat. It is apparently an intra-Syrian business, but nevertheless, because of the Israeli commitment to the Druze, here we are again involved in fighting in Syria. What's happening here?
Well, first of all, I don't think the Soviet Union really is the right metaphor or analogy. This reminds me more of Yugoslavia when Tito left. Slobodan Milosevic and the Council of Presidencies tried to hold Yugoslavia together, but the separatist views inside Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Croatia, those forces of separatism were stronger than the central government being led by Slobodan Milosevic. So one can either say that al-Shara intentionally is trying to rule by force, which he is, and he is disappointing the Western world that he's wearing Oxfords and not brogues. Or you can say that the forces of separatism, those centrifugal forces, are beyond the capability of Damascus right now to hold back. And so al-Shara obviously struck out at not only the Druze community, but the Alawi community. The SDF up in the northeast is feeling its oats and is no longer feeling beholden to Damascus. And of course, in the east, the ISIS and the Islamists never signed up to their old buddy al-Shara. So the short answer is this holiday from history that we had with Ahmed al-Shara for a few months, I think, is coming back into reality.
But if you're talking about vignettes from history, Israelis have learned the bitter lesson of Lebanon, where mostly Mossad, but then the entire government fell in love with the Phalange, the Lebanese forces, the Maronites under Bashir Gemayel, were led to believe that once they let him get elected as president, he will sign a peace treaty with Israel, and the rest is a very bitter history. What makes this example of the Maronites different than what Israel has with the Druze, except for the fact that there are also Israeli Druze?
No, that's entirely right. And so the question is, I still think the real question is, does Shara have either the intention or the capability to hold Syria together going forward? And the other key constituencies, like the United States, who won the 50-yard dash as one of the first countries in Syria after the fall of Bashar al-Assad to try to court a relationship with al-Shar is probably wondering, again, to continue to use poor metaphors and analogies, it could well be that you really can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again at this point.
John Kupperwasser, you served with IDF intelligence during the war in Lebanon, which started in 1982, and pretty soon had Israeli Druze fighting just like any other officer and soldier in the ranks when they linked up with their brethren, especially in the Shuf Mountains, and the Lebanese Druze came under attack by the Christians there, the Maronites. There was this problem of dual loyalty. Brave Druze officers who fought valiantly suddenly had to decide whose side are they on. And this apparently is happening today too in the Syrian events.
What we see in Syria now is a very different situation than what we had in Lebanon. In Lebanon, we never confronted the Druze, and there were some Druze here and there, very few that took action against us, but not as representative of the Druze community. The Druze community had reasonable relations with Israel and in Lebanon at the time. In Syria, it's a total different situation. The Druze are under attack. They were feeling that this is going to happen right from the beginning when Shara took over, and they raised their concerns with the government. They managed to convince the government that it should make a commitment towards the Druze in Syria, and the rest is what we are seeing now. And this is not the first round of such hostilities. We had a similar case in Germana some time ago, and another one later on, and it's repeating itself, and we knew that eventually this is going to drag us in. And the decision was to, with open eyes, do that because of our commitment to the Druze and because of our understanding that if the militias of the jihadists are going to take over the Druze mountain, it's going to pose an immediate threat to Israel as well. That's why it's not only about the Druze, it's about our security as well. Now, regarding the Druze themselves, we are facing now a strange situation where hundreds or even maybe 1,000 Druze, some of them officers of Israeli officers or retired Israeli officers, are crossing the border in order to fight together with the Druze in the area of Sweda. And this is something unprecedented. The fact is that we were not able to stop them from crossing the border. And this is a totally new situation because there might be a situation where Israelis are going to fight together, Israeli Druze are going to fight together with Syrian Druze on this battle. Now, as I said, I didn't want to go into the details, but between us, the Druze community in Syria, including some of the Druze communities in the Golan Heights, is divided in their attitude towards happening. And some of them were supporting the Assad regime, some of them were against it. So even today, it has an impact on the way that the former opposition regards the Druze in the Sweda area. And there are inner fighting or inner disagreements between the Druze themselves. It's not all of the Druze that are of the same opinion and on the same side. It's a complicated situation.
Yes, we remember it from Lebanon, the fight between the Arsalan and Jumbalat clans, both Druze, but pulling in various directions, sometimes opposite each other. Now, Mark, you mentioned the dilemma of a central government versus separatism. And this brings a sense of déjà vu because 14 years ago and later, once the Arab Spring hit Syria, there was this sense that the Assad regime will not be able to control the entire country. Maybe it is best, at least for Israel, for Syria, to be dismembered into various provinces. On the other hand, of course, if there's no central government, all sorts of jihadists and militias and gangs could take over districts and pose threats. And here we are again. Now Assad is called Jolani or Ashara. What's your sense? What's in the least worst, if not best, interest of the West, of Israel?
Well, of course, the least worst is what we were hoping for. And if we don't get a single unified, pluralistic Syria, then I think the least worst is probably going to be Turkey extending its hegemony into that region. It is clearly not going to allow the SDF to separate into northeast Syria province. We will continue to fight ISIS. Tom Barak, who is not only the U.S. Special Representative for Syria, but also the U.S. Ambassador to Turkey. I mean, clearly his point of view for non-separatism is well known. So I think if left to itself, and if these separatist organizations, either in the west with the Alawis, in the north with the Kurds, in the west, in the east with the ISIS, and in the south with the Druze around Sueda, if they all want to go their own way, I don't think Turkey is going to permit this. I think Turkey is the key country to watch in terms of how this resolves itself.
Now, Yossi, only a few days ago, and this has suddenly been overtaken by events, we had talk of peace between Israel and Syria, Syria joining the Abraham Accords, if not peace, at least security arrangements, de facto recognition by Syria for the time being of Israeli presence in and control over the Golan Heights. What happened?
Well, the reality struck us in the face. That's what happened. The fact is that I was saying that we should care about our enthusiasm all along the way. Shara is still somebody who was just not too long ago a jihadist, and we have to get proof that he is able and willing to control Syria, unified Syria. It's not so obvious, especially the capability. And what we have been facing is the proof that he is not able to control all of Syria. And as General Kimmich said, that the situation is much more fragile and vulnerable than what we were led to believe. And moreover, that he himself has not yet given up on his jihadic identity. And his forces support those gangs that operate there in Sueda. And we can't trust him. And we said all along the way that the rush of the Americans to commit themselves to Shara was premature, and more needs to be proven that and his way to be worthy of this support before we let him have all the benefits. And that's the situation. I hope that what we are doing now is going to bring him back to the right track, and we shall be able to take advantage and build on the common interest we have with him that are very important to us. The fact that he's against the Iranians, the fact that he's against Hezbollah, the fact that he wants a stable Syria, basically, in order to be able to start this reconstruction effort. So I believe that in the long run, we should be able to move in this direction. But for the short run, he still has to prove that he is capable of moving on this track and is willing to do so. And what we are witnessing now is raising some question marks about it, and to the point that we have to take military action against the Ministry of Defense in Damascus. It's unbelievable, but this is taking place as we speak.
So, General Kimmich, the dreams of a normalization domino theory are apparently to be put on hold. Could there be another reverse domino theory that not only Syria will fall back into the confrontation front, but also Lebanon, which seemed to be improving under President Aoun, with the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah holding since last November. Could Syria also have a negative impact on Lebanon?
Well, certainly. And look, let's recognize that what's happening as we scope down on Syria and to an extent Lebanon, this in many ways is a metaphor for the entire region. Ever since October 7th and the return of President Trump, there are shifting sands in the region. It's not just in Syria and Lebanon. It's very interesting to watch what's happening in Iraq. The PKK giving up the guns literally in Iraq and Turkey. So the real question, I think, was properly addressed by General Kupawasser, which is the problem that al-Shara doesn't have the willingness to move towards a pluralistic, unified Syria, or he doesn't have the capability to move his country in that direction. And one can imagine the debates that are being held in the U.S. State Department right now about the path forward for Syria and, for that matter, Lebanon. My view there is watch Tom Barak, since he now, I think, has become the czar of those two countries, and he's going to push the American agenda and the Trump agenda. And from what I can see, is he's coming down fairly hard on Lebanon right now, and he's also coming down pretty hard on Turkey to let's give Syria a try. Still, now that may be a fool's errand, but I think right now that inside the U.S. State Department, they're figuring out how we can reverse this decline that we've seen over the last few months inside the governance of Syria. And certainly what's happening down in Sueda is not making things better. And candidly, I think you could make the same argument about the Israeli attack onto the MOD.
Now, General Kupawasser, given that Israel has confirmed that it is shifting forces from other sectors towards the Syrian boundary or area inside Syria, just in case it has to get involved not only from the air, but also with boots on the ground. And given that the Israeli military is stretched very thin, with the high command pressing for drafting more draft age conscripts, is it quite a burden on Israel to have this front suddenly open, even while Israel is still involved in Gaza with 5 divisions, or at least 5 divisional headquarters with several brigade combat teams?
Well, we can ease a little bit the involvement in Gaza if we need to get involved in a war in southern Syria. This can be done. It's not beyond our capabilities. We can delay a little bit some of the activities in Gaza while we shift our main focus to Syria. What's amazing, by the way, is the fact that the highest level of command in Israel cannot actually pay attention to what's going on in Syria, because so today, Prime Minister Netanyahu was on trial, and while he was on trial, he was getting all kinds of notes from his military secretary indicating that something is happening in Syria and he has to take a decision. He couldn't have a reasonable discussion about what options are to be looked upon. It's crazy. It's a crazy situation, and to make it clear how crazy the situation is, the American ambassador came to the court and ridiculed the entire process. And this is really, there is where we lack attention and capability to deal with the matter properly. The troops, we can move them from Gaza to Lebanon or to Syria for some period of time.
Well, you made me recount the fact that I ran into Ambassador Huckabee in the court and asked him, I didn't get any answer, whether he thinks the Israeli ambassador should have gone to New York to the Trump trial last year. But General Kimmit, to sum it all up, could you share with us, please, the view from Washington? How central is all of this business to the Trump administration now that Russia-Ukraine is back at center stage and that President Trump also have some domestic issues which I won't go into?
Candidly, I think that Syria right now, you would be hard-pressed to find that in the newspaper being discussed at all. And I would say if you're talking about the agenda of the national security meetings over the last week, Syria may have been an apostrophe or an asterisk, but not much more than that.
But we should all remember that Syria is serious. Nevertheless, even though it is far from the attention span of the decision makers in Washington, because Washington may not be interested in Syria, but Syria has a knack of getting people's attention, even if they are reluctant to do so. So for the time being, thank you, the two of you, General Mark Kimmit in Washington, General Yossi Kuperwasser here in central Israel. This has been Israel at War, an update on TV7 News Israel on day 649 of the war. We will be back with another edition this coming Friday. For the time being, Shalom from Jerusalem.
My name is Eran Lerman. I used to be Deputy National Security Advisor to the Government of Israel, currently Vice President of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, a think tank, and the editor of the Jerusalem Strategic Tribune. For the last few years, I've been a regular panelist for TV7, a fantastic opportunity to bring deep and analytical perspectives to the debate over regional affairs, Israeli affairs, international affairs, in the company of some of the best minds in Israel.